What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Dave from Chase to Summit, and this is the Trail Talk podcast, where we talk all things fitness tech, wearable technology, ultra running, GPS watches, shoes, just about anything that piques my interest is what we talk about here. Today, we've got episode 51. Can't believe I've done this 51 times. It's just me today, no guests, but I do have a pretty big, pretty packed episode for you today. Lots of news, lots to talk about here, and a lot of stuff has developed over the past week that we're going to talk about in this podcast today. Before we dive in, though, I do want to thank the Patreon members and YouTube members out there. If you're a Patreon member, I really appreciate your support, and if you're not, check out the link at the bottom of the show notes where you can go check out Patreon. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically just a way to help support this podcast and my main YouTube channel and what I'm doing here, and I really appreciate that. I also want to give a shout out to the merch store. Check out the merch store for a Chase to Summit trucker hat or a running shirt or a hooded sweatshirt. I've got a lot more merch coming on the way. I'm working on that now, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And use code BFCTS20 at checkout for 20% off your whole order. I don't advertise that. I only talk about it in the podcast. So if you want 20% off, check that out. Okay. I've got my notes here, and I also want to mention, if you're listening to this, if you're an audio only person listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Deezer, or whatever, go check out the YouTube channel. There's actually a podcast, Chase to Summit Trail Talk YouTube channel now as a companion to the audio only version, so you can actually see me and hear me instead of just hear me, which is good and bad because I'm typically a mess when I record these podcasts, but I'm doing it anyways. So check out the YouTube channel. That's in the show notes down below, and make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel because it's only got a couple of hundred subscribers. It would be great to see that number go up. So help me out, hit subscribe, hit the like button, do all the YouTube things, comment over there, get that algorithm going because I need some help. Okay, with all the intro stuff out of the way, I do want to talk about the toe, the broken toe. This has become sort of the Dave's broken toe saga on the podcast here. If you're unaware, or if you've been following along for the past few episodes, you've heard and seen about my toe. I dropped a laptop on my toe, of all things, back in January, and I fractured one of the bones in my big toe on my right foot, and it sucks. Unfortunately, it's prevented me from running basically entirely. The entire month of January and February were kind of a wash. I got a few runs in, but they were painful, so I backed off. And just last week, I'm happy to report that I ran almost 30 miles. It was like 28, 29 miles for the week, which is not a lot for a guy who should be training for a 100-mile ultramarathon, but it's a big win in my book because I'm back in action. I'm able to test out the GPS watches, and it just feels good to get outside, get some air, get on the trail. And generally, it makes me a happier person. My wife has even mentioned that when I'm able to run and get my long runs in, I'm a more pleasant person to be around. So good news there. It's still broken. I still have a follow-up appointment. In a couple of weeks, I got to go and get another x-ray on my foot. The doctor told me not to run. I'm kind of going against his advice. I'm really just listening to my body and, the pain level. If it's tolerable, I'm going to run through it. If it's not, then I know something's wrong. I'm really trying to be smart about it, but I can't sit on the sidelines anymore. I've been going stir crazy. So I'm back. I'm back to running. I'm not sprinting. I'm doing mainly easy runs and really focusing on form, because what I did notice is because of the broken toe, I've been pronating my foot and leaning into my pinky toe side of my foot, and that's actually messed up my form considerably, and it's actually caused a little bit of back problems. So lately I've been really dialing back my pace, like 10, 11-minute miles, and really focusing on form to make sure that I'm not doing any damage to my running economy or, bones and stuff. So that is the broken toe update. I hope you came here for that, to hear about my broken toe. And hopefully at my next doctor appointment, things look better on the x-ray. The next thing I want to mention is if you haven't been watching the main YouTube channel, I've actually been working with COROS, the watch company, the GPS watch company, and they've invited me to train with Kilian Jornet. He's a famous ultra runner, basically the GOAT, the most impressive ultra runner ever. And he's doing like a training camp. And if you bought a COROS Kilian Jornet edition watch, you could enter to win. It was kind of like a lottery. They were going to pick some people to train with Kilian. And they also invited a few YouTube people like myself to try it out as well. So I've actually been doing it over the past week. Before that, I couldn't really participate 100%. Last week, I was pretty much doing all of the workouts that they had planned for me, but they are still kind of intense. So the way this is working is basically they gave all of us kind of two different training plans. There was like a beginner training plan and then an advanced training plan. And depending on your goals, like for me, my goals are 100-mile ultra marathon. So I fell into the advanced category, which is kind of a lot because, like I said, I've been dealing with an injury. So this training plan, the way it's looked, has been like 45 to 47 to 50 miles a week, and doing intervals, doing some strength training, doing some long runs, doing some easy runs. And it's all structured in a way where if I follow it to a T, theoretically, I should have insane fitness by May, which would be awesome. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'll be able to follow it to a T all the way through. And the cool thing about it is I'm able to go into the COROS Evo Labs platform on the training website through their whole ecosystem basically, and comment on each workout, telling the coaches what's going on with me. For example, my toe, I can note that in there, and then they can adapt the training plan to my needs. So last week on all of my workouts, I pretty much wrote, had to take it easy doing it due to a broken toe injury. And Kilian Jornet actually responded to me and wrote back into the comments, which was super cool, just telling me to focus on, other activities like getting on a bike or skiing, he suggested. He also mentioned doing breath work and going on walks and things like that. So super cool. As time goes on, as I become more involved with it, I will update you. I'll probably talk about it on the podcast. I might talk about it on the main channel. I'm not really sure yet, but it is kind of interesting. And by the end of this whole process, this is kind of a trial thing with these 30 people that are participating now. But eventually, that training plan that we've all been working with is going to be available to everybody on the COROS platform, and you'll be able to download it to your training hub so you can do what we're doing. And I think they're just kind of vetting out the process now before it gets to that point. Of course, Kilian won't be a coach for everybody, but his training plan will be available. So that's pretty darn cool. Next up, I want to talk about my race calendar. So a lot has changed in terms of racing this year. I wasn't really expecting much, so I kind of procrastinated on signing up for races. I really wanted to try to get into Western states. I didn't make the lottery. And then I signed up for a couple of 50Ks, and I got waitlisted for the Vermont 100-mile endurance race. So I didn't expect to get into that. However, things have changed. So in April, right around the corner, kind of scary considering I'm not that trained up, my wife and I are going to be running a 50K at the Trail Animals Running Club Spring Classic 50K here in Massachusetts. That's only like a half an hour car ride from us. We're going to do it together. I'm pretty excited about that. And then a couple of weeks later, on May 13th, I'm going to be running the TARC Trail Animal Running Club WAPAC and Back 50-mile ultra marathon. That's a mountain marathon, ultra marathon. So it's got a lot of elevation change. It's got pretty rugged terrain, and I'm pretty excited about that. I've done that one, I think 4 times now, and it's a ton of fun. Great volunteers, good vibe, and really cheap to get into. If you don't know what Trail Animals Running Club is, it's a local club here in Massachusetts, here in the USA. But they are pretty popular in this area because the races are like $50 or $60 to get into, and they're a lot of fun. After that, going into June on my calendar, I've got a couple of days scheduled for kind of personal goal days. I want to go up into the mountains and do some long trail run / hike things. I try to do something called a Pemi Loop and a Prezi Traverse every year. The Pemi Loop is about 32 miles and 10,000 feet of elevation gain. And then the Prezi Traverse is like 20 miles and like 9,000 feet of gain. But these two are monsters, and they're a great way to gauge your fitness. If you want to know what kind of shape you're in, a Pemi Loop will really rock you. So I'm really excited to do that because I have not been up to the mountains in a while, and I need to get back there. So that'll be June. A couple of like personal big days, and then in July I actually got off the wait list for Vermont. And I'm on the starting list for the Vermont 100. So I'm going to run 100 miles in July, on July 14th, just a couple of days after my 39th birthday. So that is coming. I can't believe I wasn't really expecting to come off the wait list that quick. I mean, I thought I would get in, but probably closer to the event. But I already got off. So that's really awesome. And then in September, October timeframe, I think I've got another race, but I don't want to talk about it yet because I'm not fully committed. But I think there'll be one more race. So for a guy who kind of procrastinated and didn't have a whole lot planned, I think I've actually pieced together a pretty fun spring, summer, fall race schedule. And it might tweak, it might change. If you've got any ideas for me, drop them into the comments on YouTube. If there's any big mountain adventures or races that I should be aware of, even though it's kind of late to sign up, if there's a way to get in, let me know in the comments on YouTube. Okay, moving right along into the next segment I want to talk about here is a new segment that I'm going to call YouTube channel / video shoutouts. That's a really bad name. YouTube shoutouts. That's a better name. So basically, I just want to give a shout out to one particular YouTube video that I enjoyed watching this past week. It's by a channel called Feet First Athletics. They only have 890 subscribers. They definitely deserve more. Feet First Athletics. I'll link it in the show notes down below. And essentially, this was a documentary about these two guys attempting the Florida 200 FKT. They've got lots of ups and downs and highs and lows, and I just found it to be really fascinating, and it really passed the time for me on my treadmill. So go check it out, and I'll link it down in the show notes. And if you've got any great, fun, ultra running, outdoorsy type YouTube videos, drop those in the comments on YouTube as well. I'd love to hear from you. With all of the banter and intro stuff out of the way, let's get right into the running news of the week. And if you're an ultra runner, you're probably aware of the Barkley marathons that just happened a couple of days ago. And boy, was it a year at the Barkley. If you don't know what the Barkley marathons are, it's a super rugged race. And I say that with no exaggeration, in Frozen Head State Park in Tennessee. And basically it's 5 loops. And this route changes every year. The race director is a guy named Laz. He's a real character. He smokes cigarettes, and his entry fee is a license plate from your state. And sometimes it changes to be like a fresh new T-shirt for him or something like that. And the only way to get into the race is to be invited. You can't just go and apply for this. You can't just show up. And then it's a very secretive course. So the course is not marked. It's completely off trail. You have to use orienteering skills, a compass, and a map. No GPS watches are allowed. No electronics are allowed. So you're really out there. And like I said, it's 5 loops. Originally, this race was supposed to be 100 miles, but everybody now says it's like 130 miles or something like that. Anyways, this race is so hard that prior to this year, only 18 people over the course of its 40-year history have even finished the race. And if you want to learn all about the race, check out the documentary that's available on Netflix. I forget what it's called, but there's a Barkley Marathons documentary on Netflix that really gives you the lay of the land and explains the whole race. Anyways, this year there were 3 finishers, which is very rare. Sometimes there's one finisher, sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's no finishers. This year there were 3 finishers. And so the first place was Aurélien Sanchez from France. He finished in 58 hours and 23 minutes. Second place was John Kelly from the USA. He finished in 58 hours in 42 minutes, and he is a 2-time finisher. So this is the second time he's finished the race. Out of 18 people, he's done it twice. So that's pretty crazy. And in third place came COROS Coaching, and he's from Belgium. He's also got a really great YouTube video about the Barkley marathons on his last attempt. I would go check that out on YouTube. It's COROS Coaching. He finished in 59 hours and 53 minutes. And the crazy thing about COROS is that he was only 6 minutes away from missing the cutoff. If he was 6 minutes later, he would have been disqualified, but he just made it by 6 minutes. These are all super impressive performances by these runners. And I can only imagine that next year Laz is going to make the course even harder because he hates when people finish. He wants everybody to be eaten alive out there. So next year, I wouldn't be shocked to see a 0 finisher year. So congratulations to all of the runners out there who gave an attempt, who got their fun run in, and for the 3 that actually crossed the finish line. Okay, moving right into the fitness tech news of the week. We've got a lot. So first of all, like I said, I'm participating in the Kilian Jornet training camp thing. However, COROS actually launched a coaching platform for all users that's actually free. So this is real life coaches on the other end that will provide feedback using the data from your COROS platform or your Evil Labs data. Pretty cool. And the type of questions you can ask these coaches is, what should my fatigue be prior to a race? What if I was sick last week? What should I do this week? What intensity should I train at for my goals? Or how do I increase my fitness? I'm kind of surprised they're rolling this out. Given the amount of users they have, I don't know how they're going to manage how quickly they can get back to people, but it's pretty cool. And according to the website, on the COROS website, they show that there's currently 3 coaches available to help people out. I don't know how many COROS users are out there, but I think, if several thousand people start emailing them, they'll probably get bogged down. I'm interested to see how it works out. If you're participating in the COROS Coaches platform, let me know. I'd like to hear from you and how it's working for you. If you want to join and try it out, you can email coach@coros.com, not coaches, just coach@coros.com. The next piece of fitness tech news this week is some news from Huawei. There's some rumors floating around out there on Reddit and on some other bigger platforms that say that Huawei is working on a satellite communications GPS watch. And what this means is potentially this new device could have a satellite communication feature where you could send and receive messages, like text messages, without a cell phone signal. This is very similar to something like the Garmin InReach technology. It's not LTE, where LTE requires, your cellular connection, which would require an antenna nearby. So you'd have to be in like a city or an urban environment. This is satellite communication. So you could be on top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere and still be able to send a message from your watch. This is actually a feature I've been waiting for a really long time from a company like Garmin, because they do have the Garmin InReach platform, which is satellite communication, and they do have GPS watches, a bunch of them, and they've got some GPS watches with LTE inside. I've been waiting for the day where InReach gets smushed into a Garmin Epix Gen 2 or a Phoenix 7 or something like that, because it would be really cool to be able to share your location and, update friends and family on what's going on with you right from your watch without having to get out your Garmin InReach device. So apparently Huawei is working on this. there's not a whole lot of information about this, but it is something I want to just mention because it is pretty interesting, and I'm really curious to see how this, eventually rolls out. Next up in the fitness tech news is FitBit. So Fitbit has made a major change in the way their subscription works. If you're unaware, Fitbit, I didn't like it a whole lot. If you watch any of my main channel reviews, you'll know that the Fitbit subscription kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Essentially, when you buy a Fitbit, you get basic information like your heart rate for every day, the calories burned, things like that. But if you wanted more advanced information like your readiness score, that's kind of like your body battery or how much energy you have left for the day, you had to pay a subscription to get that information. And I don't like subscriptions. So that bothered me. Like if you spend a couple $100 on a device, the last thing you want to do is pay a monthly subscription. Anyways, Fitbit has gone ahead and taken some of these metrics and made them available for all users free. So they've taken some of these subscription metrics and moved them into the free bucket, so you don't really have to spend money if you don't want to. What does this include? This includes breathing rate, heart rate variability, your skin temperature, your SpO2 or blood oxygen saturation, and your resting heart rate data. That's all available now for free. So if you are a Fitbit user, make sure you do a firmware update and update your app and make sure everything's working. You might notice some free metrics that are now available. There's some rumblings going on. I got this information from the 5K Runner website. I don't know if it's 100% accurate or not, but apparently Polar has announced that they're going to be laying off some people. Unfortunately, the sales were down in the last year or so. So they're going to reduce their company size by about 15%, taking down their current employment, which is 1,150 people across 20 different countries. They're going to reduce that by 15%. Pretty big bummer. I hate to hear people losing their jobs, but I'm not going to lie. I haven't felt a whole lot of development and innovation and forward progression from Polar as a company. Their watches are still great, right? Like they didn't get worse. The problem is they haven't adopted new technologies. They don't even have the blood oxygen saturation sensor that every other brand has now rolled out, COROS, Polar, Sunto, even brands like Amazfit. They're all adopting that. And I just feel like they've kind of plateaued a little bit in terms of their firmware, their functionality. That's not to say they're bad devices. They're still really good and very capable and will definitely help you train for an event. But when you're looking at electronics and gadgets, there's so many other compelling reasons to go for a Garmin or even a COROS or something else. If they do downsize, they'll save some money. But I also really, really hope that they kick it into high gear with their innovation in engineering and they come out with something super, super exciting very soon. Because I got to say, in terms of like third-party accessories, Polar heart rate straps or heart rate sensors are my favorite. I really like Polar sensors, like the Polar H9 chest strap or the VeritySense optical sensor for the arm. Awesome devices, and their watches are great too. So it would be a shame to see them go under. Hopefully they can pull it together. Like I said, I don't know how accurate this information is. I just read it online and I'm reading it to you. So take that for what it's worth. Next up in the news, I want to talk about Amazfit, not Amazefoot. I got my broken toe on the brain. So Amazfit, if you're unaware, is a subsidiary of Xiaomi, which is a bigger brand that makes like phones and stuff like that. And despite the name, they are not related to Amazon at all. The company is called Amazfit, not Amazon. And so they've been developing multi-sport smartwatches for a while now. And I've been reviewing them on the main channel back to 2021, I think is the first one I featured. And the devices that came out after that continued to get better and better. And now they've released two new devices. One's called the Amazfit GTR Mini, and the other is called the T-Rex Ultra. Now, I don't have the GTR Mini. They didn't send me that one, but I've been testing the T-Rex Ultra for a few weeks now. And yesterday, I actually posted my in-depth review about this watch. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. It's 28 minutes long. It's pretty long, but there's a lot of information in it. Hopefully you find it valuable. Anyways, the T-Rex Ultra is a really interesting watch because this watch has a big 1.4-inch AMOLED touch-enabled display. It's got internal storage for music, and it has offline mapping. You heard me right. Amazfit now has offline mapping. And previously, only Garmin was really doing that. Then COROS kind of got into it with their base map. And now the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra also has mapping. And the Amazfit Falcon, one of their higher-end watches, got the mapping in a firmware update, which is pretty cool. Now, this mapping is a little bit limited. It's not like Garmin mapping where you get like road names and labels on everything. It's really just a base map. So it's kind of like a Google Maps image that's downloaded to the watch, and you don't need a cellular connection or your phone even connected to the watch to use it. It downloads to the watch, and then you can see it offline wherever you are in the world. Pretty cool. There are a couple of gotchas though. It's not rootable, so you can't like get turn-by-turn navigation using the map in the watch. And like I said, there are no labels, so you don't see mountain peaks or points of interest or anything like that. And the functionality is a little bit clunky. Like it seems like the computer has a hard time, or the CPU in the watch has a hard time scrolling around and zooming in and out and stuff like that. But generally, I was pretty amazed to see that Amazfit put maps on their watches, because this watch comes in at $399 here in the USA. It's got a stainless steel bezel, touchscreen, AMOLED, heart rate sensor, multi-band GPS, and maps. Those are basically the same specs as something like the Garmin Epix Gen 2 at half the price, because it's $400 instead of $900 or $1,000. So if you have eyeballed Amazfit before and you thought they were kind of a compelling brand, check out the T-Rex Ultra, and I'll link my full review in the show notes down below. And finally, we've got some news from Garmin. Not the news you'd probably be hoping for a GPS watch or something like that, but they did come out with several new handheld units. And I find it fascinating that Garmin is still making handheld units in a world where we all have phones and you can download apps for your phone for offline mapping and stuff like Gaia GPS or whatever. But I suppose there is a use case for that dedicated handheld if you're a hunter or somebody who's off the grid and you don't use a phone, or the battery life on a phone isn't good enough. That's where these handheld units will come in handy. See what I did there? So the new units are called, the cheapest one is called the eTrex SE. Comes in at $149 here in the USA and runs on AA batteries. It's got a monochrome display, so it's not a fancy AMOLED display or anything like that. The middle of the range model is called the GPS Map 67. That one comes in at $500 in the USA. It's got a 3-inch screen that is color and comes preloaded with topo-active maps in the US, Canada, and Mexico. And then finally, the real baller, the top dog here, is the GPS Map 67i. So this is basically the same model as the GPS Map 67, but it's $100 more. And the reason why is because they built in-reach communication into this unit. That's kind of what I want them to do with the watches. But now you can get a GPS map handheld unit from Garmin with your full, topo maps and satellite imagery and everything on a handheld device. And it can double as a in-reach communications device that has satellite communications. So that's pretty cool. And, it's kind of interesting that they added it to a handheld, but I guess that makes sense. It's a bigger unit. They can cram more technology in there. But yeah, it's $600, and I'm hoping they can just squish that kind of technology into a watch someday. And that's really it for the news this week. Not a ton of news, but I thought some of these articles were pretty interesting, and that's why I made this podcast. It's going to be a short and sweet one this week. It looks like I've been recording for about a half an hour. I'm not going to take up your whole day with this podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, make sure to head over to YouTube. Give me the thumbs up and subscribe down below. If you're over on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, make sure to give me a 5-star rating and leave a little comment about what you like about the podcast. That really helps me out. I hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure to check out the merch store. I'm trying to think of all the plugs I'm supposed to do at the end of these podcasts because I always forget. Oh yeah, check out Patreon. And that's really it. Okay, that's the end of this episode. And I will see you in episode 52 next time. Bye.